Welcome. My name is George Pearson, and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video, though, is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this Photoshop Elements text project, we're going to be working with a basic concept, and that's how to put text into a shape. Now, with doing this, you can do some fun stuff. Over here, we have the text following the basic shape of Abraham Lincoln over here on the right-hand side. Over on this second picture, we still have text following a shape. The shape in this case is the shape of Lincoln's head over here on the right-hand side, and again, the text is filling inside that shape. And then a few more things, of course, to get this really interesting look to it. So let's begin. Take a look at how you put text into a shape, and then how you can use it to do these two effects. Get rid of those. Here we go. Here's the basic image that I have for this. And I just found this on the internet. Any good picture will work for these things as long as you have a good dividing line for the head. Now we want to come in a bit on this. This is too much picture in here, really. So we're going to crop in a little bit on this image. And let's just grab our rectangular tool. And then I'm going to pull in some guidelines here. And we'll come in and set up some basic guides. I want a little more space on the left-hand side than the right-hand side. Let's just get rid of that little thing there. There we go. And let's bring one down from the bottom. I don't need to come down that far. Let me bring up one of the other images here so you can see about what we're looking for. Open Files. There we go. I just want to make sure that I match that as close as possible on our demo here. So we'll just cut in a bit on the right-hand side. That's pretty good. On the left-hand side, I'll leave about that much over there. We don't need to have all of that shoulder and stuff. Let's just come up here. Oh, about to there is good. Just above his arm on the right-hand side. Looks nice. We don't need to have that little bit showing there, so that works out well. And then I'll bring our top down a bit. Okay, so all we really need is just that area. What's inside of that selection. That's what we'll be using as our main picture area. We'll be putting text over here on the left-hand side, and then our second version putting text inside of his head on the right-hand side. Okay, now to go ahead and crop in on this, we'll just use the crop tool, which is just right there. And we'll bring up that crop tool. And make sure we're on the right picture. There we go. There's our crop tool. And since I've already decided where our crop is using these guidelines, it's a trick I like to do just to make it easy. We'll bring our crop in like that. At this point, you can come in and adjust your crop. I'm going to give us a little more space from the left-hand side. Like that. That'll help. And choose OK. It then cuts the picture to that crop position. And then we can get rid of those guides. They're no longer needed for us. Let's just clear our guides. And there we go. So there's our basic image to work with. And get that one out of the way. And we're going to zoom in here just a bit. Alright, so there we go. That's our basic working file for this. That looks good. Now, in order to understand what we'll be doing here, you need to understand how text fills inside of shapes. So I'm going to open up a new file here, and I'll just bring up just the default size here, Photoshop Elements default size, like that. And then I have a text file right over here. This is the text from Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. So we'll just be using that. It matches our image. Now, when you work with text, we'll bring up our text tool over here. Let's change our text color. I shall leave it at white just for a minute. But when you have your text, you can choose to draw in horizontal type or vertical type, or selections based on your type, or text on a selection. That actually puts the text on the outside of a selection. Text on a shape, this puts text outside of a shape, actually follows the outside of a shape. And then text on a path follows the outside of a path. What we want to do is to put text inside of a shape. Easy to do. Let's go right here, click and hold, and then here's our ellipse tool. And I'll set this for black. There we go. And let's just make a black ellipse. But kind of a dark gray in this case. Let's see if we can see why. Opacity is wrong. I'll bring that up to 100%. There we go. Okay, we'll zoom in on this. Let's grab the zoom tool. Make that a bit larger here so we can see that. There we go. So we have our shape, and the shape was drawn using the shape tools. This is the important part. You have to draw it with one of these shape tools down here. Let's now go over to our text, and you want to have the horizontal type tool, which is your standard horizontal type. And then let's go over here, and I'm just going to grab that first line, and we'll copy that. Now, if you clicked out here, notice that the text cursor has a rectangle around it. If I come to the edge of this shape, notice how it changes to a kind of a squiggly line. If I click there, it will put text around the outside of this shape. If I come inside, though, you can kind of see that the cursor changes to a circle, being inside of a circle. That means it will place the text inside of the shape. So there's our shape. Let's get a little selection here, and I'm going to right click and paste because I already copied our text. And if I select all that, it looks like it's in black right now, so let's just triple click on that, and let's change our text to white. There we go. So you can put the text inside of a shape. Now if I change the size of the shape, notice how the text gets moved over on the right hand side, but on the left hand side it's outside of our shape at this point. So you can't come in and modify the size of your shape. What I'm actually doing is I'm modifying the position of the text. You see this shape now. This shape is the new text area. We actually built a new shape for the text, and our original shape is sitting there in behind and not being used. So you are on the text layer right now. Okay, so much for that. So you can put text inside of a shape. That's good. The next thing to know is that you can modify a shape after you have drawn your shape. But you can't modify it very easily. There are some tricks to this. Let's go back to our shape tool here. Now this arrow is the shape selection tool. With that, I can grab my shape and I can change the size of the shape like that. But there's more that you can do with this. And if I pull this kind of out of the way so we can see the rest of our controls down here. Right here are controls that allow you to combine shapes together. This adds shapes. You can add a shape onto another shape. This subtracts shapes. Let me just demonstrate those two. We'll be using those two techniques in our training. I'll take a rectangle down here, and we're going to use that one right there, little two squares. So I'll do that, and I'll add that rectangle to my shape. Now if we look at our shape over here, it's all on one line. It's still just one shape. So you can add to a shape. You also can subtract from a shape. Let's change this over here to this one. That's subtract. So if I go over here and do this, I can subtract from that shape. Now I still have all these lines in here that you don't want. So if we come down and grab our shape selection tool, click on combine, it then combines that into one shape. Now the interesting thing about this is that if you put text inside here, the text would follow this new shape. And that's the basis for how we're going to be doing our Abraham Lincoln. Okay, let's just get rid of our little sample page there, bring Abe Lincoln back up again. We'll do the easy one first and then the more complicated one second. On this one, we want to have the text starting up around here someplace and then kind of following the side of his head down over here. So what we want is we want to have a shape that fits this area. And we'll use these tools to build that shape. So we'll start off with just a rectangle, and I'll begin up here in the corner, and I'll come down kind of like that. That gives me the top section, and then we have this area over here. Now I want to cut off or get rid of some of this shape in here. Let's bring our opacity down about 50% so we can see Abe Lincoln in behind there. I'm going to change over to the ellipse tool and the subtract, and then I'll draw an ellipse in here. And let's kind of come out until it's about there, and that then cuts out that part of the shape. Now you can use different tools. We even have these custom shape tools in here. There are all kinds of custom shapes you can use if you want to. So you have a lot of options for tool shapes. But we'll stick mostly with the ellipse and see what we can do with this one. It takes a little bit of work to get the hang of this. And I'm just going to be drawing just a few ellipses and try to come in and cut into the shape so that we then see that part of Lincoln's that we want to see. You don't need to be exact on this because we're having text. We want the text just to be away from the head. And it's merely a matter of coming in here and putting in some of these shapes to cut this part of his head out of that original shape. And again, you don't have to be perfect on this. Perfection doesn't matter in here. Now I still have this big section over here, so I'm going to grab that with the elliptical, or the rectangle rather. Now let's do a rectangle like this around that section. And then a little one right there. Okay, so we have all these different shapes now in here. And what they've done is they have cut into our original shape. Let's now go over to the shape selection tool, click on combine, and it all becomes one shape. So we now have one shape over here to the left of Abe Lincoln's face that follows the outline of his face. You're reasonably close, and that's all we need for this particular technique. Now we can put text inside of this shape. Now we have our shape created. So go to our text tool. I'll leave it at white, that's fine. And we still should have our text on the clipboard. We're going to just double check, see if the, okay, no, the paste isn't selected, so we'll have to reselect our table. But that's okay. So let's go over here. Let me bring that back up again. There we go, right click, copy. And then notice how if I roll over here, the cursor has that kind of a square around it. If I'm inside, it has a circle. You want it to have a circle. Let's also double check that we are left aligned. Okay, there we go. Upper left hand corner, I'll just click right there. Right click, paste, and that pastes our text into that shape. Once it's here, we can do such things as change the size. So let's bring our size up. Let's try 9 point. I'm going to roll over the name or the word size, and you can actually scroll back and forth on that and change the size of your type. You can also change your leading down here. Now that looks a little large, so I think I'll come back one step to 9. That gives us that nice shaped follow through. I want to grab some more text, so I'm just going to grab a bit of this, copy, and let's come back up here again and click right after where it says equal. Put a return on that, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Control V to paste that in. And there we go. Notice how the text now is following that shape as well as I can. You know, if the word is too big, obviously, then we're going to be getting a gap in there. If you want, you can try to hyphenate those words. Just manually hyphenate them, and that'll help you to wrap that shape around. So I'll just do that. I don't want to break created in half. That wouldn't work out too well, but that's pretty good. You can see now how the text is following the outline because it's fitting inside of that shape. Let me just grab just a little more of that one sentence down there. And let me just do it this way. Edit, copy. There we go. And then right-click, paste. Finish that off. All right, so there we go. Now let's just make it look a little bit nicer in here. We'll click on the green checkbox. The text is inside of this layer, so I can hide my shape layer. And if I click on the background, we no longer have that line around there. I can now use the cursor keys on my keyboard and move this around just a little bit. There we go. And let's put a drop shadow on our text just so it's a little easier to see. So layer, layer style, style settings, drop shadow, and let's put the angle over here somewhere. There we go. And bring the size down a bit and adjust the distance so it's just a little bit off like that. And that just helps it to pop out a bit. Okay, so there we go. So we have put our text inside of that shape, and it follows the outline of Lincoln's head. So again, pretty straightforward. Now we're going to be doing this project again and getting fancier this time. We're going to actually put the text inside of a shape that matches Lincoln's head on the right hand side, and we're putting his whole face into black on the back side. So this will take a few steps to do this, and let's go ahead and start that one right now. I'm going to make a new file for this, and then we'll just put this one away. Let me just do this first. I'm going to select all. There we go. Edit, copy. And that gives me a new file that will match that size. Deselect. File, new, blank file. Matching on clipboard right there. There we go. That's the same size. I can now go over here, grab my background picture of Lincoln, drag them over to this file, and drop them in. And there we go. That's now set. I'm just going to minimize that and get that one out of the way. Okay, there are several things we want to do with this particular file. We want to make sure that just Lincoln's head is on a black background. And then we only want to keep just the left-hand side from our viewpoint here, his right side, of course, as Lincoln's image. The right-hand side we'll be using in a different manner. So this is going to take a few steps. First step is to make a copy of that layer 1. And we'll start working on our layer 1 up here. We need to have our copy, and we'll be doing several layer copies in here for different elements, different pieces as we work through. We also need a black background, so I'm going to hide that. That's my protection layer. Come back to our background. Window, color swatches. Let's make sure that our foreground color is black. And grab the paint bucket and click in there. That just fills that layer with black. So there's our black background. So that's step 1. The second step is on this layer, we want to take Lincoln's head and clean out the background so we have just his head in here and then black around the background. So that's going to be step 2 of this process. And this takes a little bit of time because we'll be making a careful selection and then deleting that selection. And any way you want to really to remove this background, you can go ahead and do that. I think that making a selection gives you a real nice clean removal. I'll be doing part of this off camera just so it doesn't take you forever watching me do my selections, but I'll be using the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm just going to come in here and carefully click around the shape around Lincoln's head here. Each time I click, it puts in a control point. I can then pull the line out to my next point, click, and that gives me a new position, and again click and a new position. I can then pull that along. So by moving my cursor along and clicking wherever I want to lock in this position, I can then create a nice selection. And what we'll be doing is erasing inside of the selection. Now if you're up against the right hand side here, if you just kind of go just inside the edge there, the picture will automatically scroll for you, so you don't have to zoom out to see where you're at. Okay, I'm going to go right to here and then pull this back to the original spot, kind of overlap it. Notice as I overlap this, I get a little circle next to that cursor. There it is. You see that circle? Click there. That then makes that the selection. Now I'm going to just hit the delete key and delete that. So that gives me that nice clean. It's a real nice clean edge in there. It's much cleaner than you would get if you were just using the eraser tool. Again, that's why I like using these selections. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be going around and making these selections around Lincoln's head and then deleting that outside area. I'm going to just do just a little more here. I'll start outside and then come back in where I left off, and then just kind of slowly come around Lincoln's beard. Now if you're using this tool, make sure you don't click too fast, because if you click too fast, it's going to close that selection off and it won't be what you're trying to achieve. So take your time, carefully move around, make your selections, and take a breath between each time you click so you're not clicking too fast. Now I'll take this up around his cheek and then we'll close that selection out right to there. Then I'll come back to the beginning, hit the delete key, and remove that part. Okay, at this point I'm going to pause the video and I'll finish cutting out the background by making those selections. As soon as I have the background cleaned out, I'll then bring the video right back up again. And there we go. There is the background cut out around his head. Now we still have our picture in behind, so I still have my background protected if I need it for any reason, but we don't. Now at this point we need to decide where we want to divide the face in half. It should be around the center point on the nose. So I'm going to draw or pull in rather, a guideline. And actually right there's the center of the picture. Coincidentally enough, that's right on the middle of the nose. Don't know how I happened to do that, but there we go. So that gives us that part. We'll be keeping the left hand side of this as the picture, and the right hand side will be text. Maybe I'll pull this over just a little bit. Get a little bit more of the nose showing on there, just a touch. Okay, now we want to put in a rectangle in here above this image. So I'll do a new layer, and we're going to grab our selection marquee, rectangular marquee here, and I'll just do a rectangular marquee just like that, right to that dividing line, and I'm going to fill that with black. So there's our paint bucket. Let's just check real fast. Color swatch is black. That's good. And fill that. Okay, deselect. So that gives us that left hand side. Now the reason why I'm doing it that way is that I now can actually come in here and change this until I'm happy with this. So I have some flexibility now. I can move this around until it's exactly where I want. If I had come in and just cut his head in half and deleted half of the head, I wouldn't have that flexibility. And of course, once we click to the background, you can't tell that this shape is sitting in front. It looks like this is just one piece sitting on top of a black background, which is perfect. Now the next thing we need to do is just hide that layer, is we need to make a shape and fill that shape with the text. So it's exactly like what we did before. We're doing our shape fill. So let's just pull our guideline back in and get to the center point right there. And we'll make a shape in here, the shape of the right hand side of our picture. So let's go over here to our shape tools. Start off with the rectangle again. And I'll start right at the top of his head, right there, right on that line. And I'll just pull the rectangle down. There we go, just down to the bottom. That gives me that rectangular shape. It's still set at 50% so we can see through. We now want to cut away the excess that we don't want, this time leaving the shape on top of his face. Last time we left it over here on the left-hand side. So it's just use whatever tool you want to use. I happen to like using the elliptical tool. And make sure that you are on either add to or erase or subtract, depending upon what you're trying to do. I'll be doing some subtracting in here. And then just begin cutting in. Now to see this, I want to hide that background so I can see that transparency, or you can even put another layer in here and fill your layer with white. But we'll just leave it at that transparency. So again, just coming in and doing these little ellipses. Oh, and it looks like I'm back on normal. Go back here to subtract. There we go. That's what I want. And I'm on the wrong layer. That's why it's not working. Okay, make sure we're on the right layer. Shape 1, subtract. And now we can begin to come in and cut in. There's a little bit of there. That's that other shape that we just made accidentally. Let me just get rid of those. We'll hide those. We don't need those. And make sure we're still on the right layer. Still on our tool. Still on subtract. All of that is good. And then it's just a matter of carefully coming in and kind of chipping away at the side of this selection in here. And once I have all these little spots made, I'll then do a bigger cleanup to clean up the stuff on the right hand side. And doing a whole bunch is okay. Gives you a little more control that way. Okay, we're getting pretty close to finish over here on the right side. That's pretty good. Alright, let's now see what we can do about the hair section up here. It doesn't need to be perfect because the text is going to have some of its own shape as well. So it's not going to be, exactly even along that right hand side. So you don't need to be, you don't need to think about being absolutely perfect on this. As long as you're close, it's going to be absolutely fine. Okay, there we go. I've now trimmed all that out. I have a little bit left right here, so I'll just do a couple of, maybe even just one big ellipse and clean that out. Just double check that spot. There we go. Looks good. So we now have our shape in here on the right hand side, which matches the right hand side of Lincoln's head. Let's change our tool to the arrow. That's the shape selection tool. Hit combine, and it gives us that combined selection. We can now change the opacity on that back up to 100%. There we are. Okay, now I can fill this with our text. I'll bring the text back up again, and I'll grab all of the text this time. There we go. Edit, copy, and get that out of the way. Move back over to the type tool. Let's make sure our type is white this time because we're working on a black background. There we are, white. I'll leave everything else the same for the moment. On the regular type tool, and notice how as I roll over here I have that rectangular shape on that. That's just straight text. If I'm inside of my shape though, I have that circle. Notice that the shape layer is selected. That needs to be selected. Okay, I'll come up here, click up here towards the top someplace, and then we can do edit, paste, and it pastes our text inside of that shape. Now I'm going to bring the text size down a bit. For this to work out, look nice, smaller type that's a lot tighter is going to work out better for you. So click a few times, 4 times in there, and let's bring this down to 6. That's pretty good. I don't want to have those spaces in there, so I'm going to just remove that space, and at the bottom again. I'll leave that one break, that's correct. Now, if this isn't bold enough for you, you may want to make the text bold. I'm using Arial Regular. If we change to Arial Black, it becomes a lot stronger, as you can see there, and the stronger text actually makes it easier to see what we're doing in here. Now, again, you might not want to have gaps like this. Now, even though technically this is a paragraph break, I think I'll wrap the text around at this point, so there's really nobody's going to be reading this aside from just to realize what it is that we're doing. And let's look at our edges, see if we can, right here we can do a little hyphenation on continent. I'll put a dash and a space, and that makes it a little better. So you can see how the text is following that shape on the right hand side. And down here with Battlefield as a hyphen, I'll just pull that out. And that's pretty good. Now, we could come in here and actually make the text a little tighter spacing if you want to. Right now we are at auto leading on this. Let's try 6 point. Gets it even tighter. What I'm looking for is a nice, tight, solid bit of text. That'll make this work out well. And again, let's go back through and see if we can do any hyphenations to help out. I think I could put one here on engaged. Dash and a space, that helps. Any nation, that doesn't work. Battlefield, we already did that one, so that's not doing us any good any longer. Okay, come can't help. Now dedicate, I think we can do that. That helps. So a little bit of it is trying to just work the text to fill in your space as much as you can. Because the more the text is filled and the more solid the text is, the better this is going to look. I also could have gone for real large, bold text and made it work that way. But, because we're talking about a lot of text, this actually comes out rather nice. Okay, but there we go. That gives our text inside of our shape. And that's what we were trying to do here. But of course, we're not done yet. Let's bring the background back up again. There's the background. And our text is following that shape. As you can see, that's working out just fine. Now, we need to get rid of the right side of our Lincoln figure. You can see a little bit of it kind of hiding behind our shape. And then if I remove the shape, his image is in the background there. So that's why we made that half shape up here. You can pull that down right there so it's, and let's just show that. So that's now hiding the back or the right half of this image. So we have our text now just on the right hand side and it follows that shape. Okay, so far so good. We're not done yet though. We now want to put the image into the letters. This is the fun one. Let's grab this layer and copy the layer. There we go. Pull this new copy above the text, so it's above the text. And now we're going to make this into a clipping mask. So right click, create clipping mask, and that puts the text inside of the lettering. There we go. There's a text inside of the lettering. We can now hide that guideline. That's no longer needed. Let's just hide that. And notice it's a little hard to see, but we can increase the values in here by using our dodge and burn tools. Let's see if we can see those. There we go. The dodge tool darkens things down. Burn tool is going to, actually dodge tool is going to lighten it up. Burn tool darken it down. So I'll take the dodge tool, and where there are highlights in here, I can come in, and I'm working on the image up here, not the lettering. And I can just lighten the image up wherever it should be lighter, already, and just kind of increase the lightness on that. The cheekbone in there, top of the lip in here, maybe the top edge of the beard. And then wherever we have some shadowing, we can increase the effect of the shadowing by darkening it down. So let's go back over here. We'll grab the burn tool this time. And where I have shadows naturally, I can use the burn tool to darken down those shadows. And then come in and put back in that contour so the contour is more easily seen. And there we go. So we now have Lincoln's head in here, made up on the left-hand side of the picture with his face, and the right-hand side of the picture made up with the Gettysburg Address. And it's all done based upon that one trick of making a shape and then putting the text inside of that shape. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.